This program is brought to you by Bible Way Media, overseen by the elders of the Chipman Road Church of Christ in Lee Summit, Missouri. Thank you for joining me today here on Studies in Christian Evidences. This podcast is designed for elementary age children. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining me today. Our lesson is entitled An Eye and an Ear for Design. Imagine waking up one day and seeing a shiny new digital camera on the floor in the middle of your room. You quickly notice that it has a relatively small enclosed chamber, along with a tiny opening called an aperture that lets in light. The aperture is covered by a shutter which regulates the length of time light is allowed through the aperture. The camera also has a lens to help focus the image being photographed, and a computer memory card to store the image. What would you think if your science teacher said that your camera just evolved by time and chance? Even though it looks like it has been designed and it works perfectly, you are asked to believe that the camera had no designer or creator, but is the product of evolution. Such a thought is absurd. No sane person would argue that your new camera evolved naturally over millions of years. But what about your eyes and their ability to take pictures? Evolutionists teach that your eyes are the result of time and chance. Yet, similar to the camera, each of your eyes has an aperture called a pupil and an iris that adjusts to make sure the right amount of light passes through the eye. On top of the iris and pupil is a clear protective plate called a cornea. Once light passes through the cornea and pupil, it moves through a lens which can adjust its shape to help clarify the image. The picture is then focused on the retina. Your retina contains two kinds of light-sensitive cells called rods and cones that convert different types of light, red, blue, and green, into chemical signals. Those signals pass from the retina to the optic nerve and then on to the brain where the picture is stored. Does this complicated process sound like the result of an accident? The truth is, your sense of sight is a blessing from God, not an effect of evolution. Doctors have studied it for centuries and are awestruck by its complex design. It is far better than any camera, so much so that even Charles Darwin, the noted father of evolution of the evolutionary theory, had to admit in his quote, "To suppose that the eye could have been formed by natural selection seems, I freely confess, absurd in the highest sense." Well, let's think about the ear. You see the eye for design. What about the ear for design? Did you know that your ear has three main areas, the outer, middle, and inner ear? What we call our ear, the fleshly appendage on each side of our head, is actually the pinna, also called the acra. God designed that part of our ear for protection and to gather sound waves, channeling them into our ear canal to the eardrum. The eardrum is a thin layer of tissue that separates the outer ear from the middle ear. The sound waves that travel down the ear canal vibrate the eardrum. The vibrating eardrum then causes the three smallest bones in the human body, the hammer, anvil, and stirrup, to amplify and transfer sound from the middle ear to the liquid-filled inner ear. The vibrations then pass into the shell-shaped cochlea. As the vibrations travel through the fluid-filled cochlea, hundreds of special cells attached to nerve fibers transmit the sound waves to the brain. Then the brain processes that information into sounds, and presto, you can hear. Your ear is unbelievably complex and intricate. Did you know that it uses 4 different types of energy to enable you to hear? It transfers natural energy, sound waves in the air, to mechanical energy, the tymmic membrane and the 3 bones of the middle ear, to hydraulic energy, the fluid in the inner ear, to electrical energy, the nerve impulses to the brain. Such a system cries out design. This arrangement could not have accidentally happened over millions of years. Your ears are literally bombarded every minute with constant noise. Yet your ear continues to work without getting tired. Wind frequently blows sand and debris toward your ears. Yet that dirt faces multiple well-designed obstacles from the folds of your outer ear, the pinna, that prevent dirt from having direct access to the shape of the ear canal, which slants downward and toward the front. to the earwax and hairs that trap the breeze. If we had no other piece of evidence in the universe to study, the human ear would be sufficient proof of the existence of the Creator. That's why David declared, I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made, Psalm 139, verse 14. And Job added, Indeed, these are the mere edges of his ways, and how small a whisper we hear of him. The thunder of his power who can understand? Job 26, verse 14. Thank you for listening today to Christian Evidences. We thank you for joining us today. We hope you have enjoyed this program. You can find out more about Bible Way Media by visiting us at BibleWayMedia.org. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find all of our podcasts on all major podcast platforms. As always, we thank you for listening.